these are fascinating people to me. The Christian Bale guy really gets me. I think he's brilliant. I think his work since he was a kid in Empire of the Sun and all the way through has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
And he had that blow up, you know, da-da-da-da-da, we all remember that, right, where he screamed and yelled at some guy on the set. But that happens. He just happened to get tossed out onto the public sphere.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing these days is that when you're a celebrity, there's a camera everywhere. Where if you're a regular human being, a regular Joe, you know, you can get caught in an inartful moment. And I think that was just a case of him being caught off guard.
So what's he like when he's just one-on-one with you?
The last time I interviewed him was for The Dark Knight Rises. He was very intense about the role. I mean, he was very into his character. He was very he took his character very, very seriously. So there was no joking with him during the interview. But it was a sort of interview that I really enjoyed in that he was just so very intent about making sure that he brought Bruce Wayne to light in the most positive sense and really had a lot of respect for the Batman character.
There's some actors, and I've interviewed many as well, who are so method and so involved in what they're doing. And I know they have to do these publicity tours, and it's a bit of a drag, and they have to sort of meet everybody one after another. But you really want to shake them and say, "No, come on, just relax, okay? You're just a guy who gets paid a lot of money for making a movie. Can we just talk about how you really feel?"
Yeah.
Have you had those examples, and have you been able to cut through some of that? How would you cut through and get to somebody who's just mailing it in? Because I've had that challenge along the way.
There have been those occasions where it's been challenging to get somebody to get past just talking about the film and just selling. I think the best example that I had of somebody who really let their hair down and who showed their true human nature was Robert Downey Jr. at the beginning of Iron Man, when he was first getting that big break, because he had so much trouble in terms of his private life, in terms of his drug use at the time, prior to that, and the problems that he had. But he was so happy, so genuinely happy when he got the break for Iron Man. And the interview with him was such that he was just so wonderfully proud of the fact that he had been given this break, that people were willing to give him an opportunity to show what he could really do. So this fellow who at one point maybe had been in his previous career a bit cocky, perhaps a bit annoyed with some of the press because of the troubles that he was having, this time was just a very humble guy.
But yet about a month or two ago, he walked out of an interview, and I watched it. It made a lot of news for half a day, and I watched what happened. The interviewer was definitely going on and on and on, in a polite way, he's British, about his background and his drug years, and he didn't want to let go.
Yeah.
Now, I guess it's a fight that we'll always see. It happens in politics all the time, as it should. You know, reporters should challenge politicians and leaders. But I felt a little uncomfortable. I felt very uncomfortable for Robert Downey Jr., and I don't say that I blame him. And I'm on the side usually of the media types because I'm one of them. But I thought that was crossing the line and enough already. So he walked out. What do you think of him walking out of an interview like that?
I was 100% behind him walking out on that. I thought that the interviewer really had just an agenda that he wanted to really provoke Robert. I thought he handled it very well. I'm surprised he didn't walk out a lot sooner in the interview at that point, but he was being very patient. He was being very gracious. And to be honest, at this point in Downey's career, to rehash that now is really nothing that needed to be explored once again. He's given a multitude of interviews in the years since. He's discussed his past troubles on many occasions, and he was there to push a film. And this particular interviewer was really just trying to be provocative and get a good soundbite. And I applauded when Robert Downey Jr. walked out. I just thought it was really unnecessary.
Talking with Tim Estiloz. Now, you usually see everything, movie-wise, and you've been a little behind because you've been working on the book and other things that you've been working on. But they say that, this has been a better box office summer than last year. Last year was a down year.
Yeah.
And if you look at what's ahead, I mean, Mission Impossible and all
That's going to be huge, I think. Have you seen the trailer for that?
Yeah, it looks great. I mean, it's just got to give him credit, Tom Cruise, for all the weird stuff he does off camera and everything, and all the news about him. Man, he turns in a physical performance every time. But this has got to be a huge year with you-know-what at the end of the year, Star Wars, right? It's got to be.
Exactly. Oh, people are looking forward to this one. I mean, there's so many generations that just love the fact that Star Wars is coming back. I mean, you've got a brand new generation that have grown up with the stories that their parents or their friends have told them about. So there's a big buzz about this, that J.J. Abrams is being very faithful to what has come before in terms of the Star Wars story, and yet advancing it with his own unique take to it. I think it's going to be very exciting. I like some of the other films that are coming out in the mix in the future with that are touching base on maybe some familiar titles, as you mentioned, Mission Impossible. I'm excited about the Man from U.N.C.L.E. film coming out for those of us who are familiar with that series. So it's been a great season box office-wise for a lot of the blockbusters. What I am a bit disappointed with, conversely, is that Hollywood is also becoming a bit bereft with original ideas in terms of the blockbusters. We're getting a lot of reboots or sequels. For example, the Terminator film that just came out. I really, really disliked that because it was just playing with a lot of the storyline that we were very familiar with before. It was somewhat of a retread of the first two films. And then after the credits, they have this segment that's strictly set up just to present the setup for a sequel. And it's becoming now where Hollywood is just churning out a significant number of films, not totally or completely, but a significant number of films that are just made to create sequels, to create a franchise, to create the next new franchise.
Well, we also have some of, and I have not seen it yet, but people are raving about Inside Out, the Pixar thing, and I think I was watching The Incredibles prior to my nap tonight. It was on TV. It was really how just absolutely perfect that film is, the Pixar world. And Minions and all these things. The animation stuff is really, I mean, I know it's a lot aimed at kids, but it's really, really hitting its stride. And I understand Inside Out for adults is a great, great take. Have you seen that yet?
Yes, I have. I love the film. I mean, what's nice about a lot of these animated films that are coming out, particularly, well, Pixar is leading the way with it, but it's nice to see films that not only touch a chord with the children, but that adults can get the humor. Adults can really appreciate the themes a whole lot more. So that it's nice to see that films of that nature are not just being made just for kids, if you will. So I enjoyed that film quite a bit.
You told me off air that you just had a chat with Mark Ruffalo. Is that right?
Yeah. Well. The thing about summer films is that, ever since the advent of Jaws, we have the summer blockbuster. But there's a lot to be said for the smaller independent films out there. So Mark Ruffalo has a film that came out not long ago. It may still be able to be found, called Infinitely Polar Bear, where he plays, it's a true story written by the director, and I'm unfortunately drawing a blank on her name right at the moment, but it's an autobiographical story about her father, who was dealing with bipolar disorder. And so Mark Ruffalo plays the character. So they had a film junket that came to town. A film junket is where the actor and or the director will come and the press will meet with them. And the film was shot in Providence, Rhode Island. So one of the other things that I do from time to time is do some film extra work or auditioning for some principal roles. So I was an extra in this film. There was sitting right next to Zoe Saldana and Mark Ruffalo and Keir Dullea from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh, man. What does he play? Who does he play?
He plays Mark Ruffalo's father, his very wealthy father.
Keir Dullea.
Yes.
He must be in his late 70s now, right?
Around there, from the looks of him. But he was a very spry in his 70s. So when it came time to do the interview, 79, thank you.
Thank you,
So he's 79 years old. Our illustrious, your son.
Yes, our illustrious producer.
Our illustrious producer came up with that in our earpiece. So he's 79 years old. So we're conducting the interview. I'm conducting the interview with Mark Ruffalo and the director. And we're talking about the film. And then I thought, all right, I always try to come up with something a little bit different to sort of catch the star off guard in a good way. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, I have a confession to make. And they're pausing, and I said, I was a film extra in your movie. And they're like, oh, you're kidding. And the director's like, I thought you looked familiar. And Mark Ruffalo says, well, you should have said something. At which point I said, Mark, really, come on, you guys would have wrestled me off the stage, the set if I had said something. But during that interview, you get a chance to see a very human and very nice side of a lot of these celebrities. There's some of them who can be very, very difficult and who can be the type of person that believes their own hype. And then there are people like Mark Ruffalo or Robert Downey Jr. of late. The person who I found perhaps the most personable is Meryl Streep. Interesting that you say that. She's in a new movie about a rock star. She's an aging rock singer. Mm-hmm. I saw the preview tonight, and Andrew helped me out. You'll do that. Anyway, she's great. I mean, anything she touches. And apparently, well, not apparently, a friend of mine, Leland Stein, who manages the Regent Theater in Arlington, his mother, I think I got this right, was Meryl Streep's drama teacher. How cool is that? No way.
But anyway, tell me about her, because she's one of the most incredibly talented actresses ever on the American stage. What is she like? She's
just one of the most down-to-earth people, at least through my experience in interviewing her. She's one of the most regular, down-to-earth people in terms of celebrity status that I've run into. I remember when I was interviewing her for the first time, there's a moment when you sit down with these celebrities. You only get about 4 minutes with them to do the interview. It's very, very quick. So you sit down, and I was trying to break the ice with her by saying happy birthday to her. I knew her birthday was in a day or two. And so she said, oh, thank you very much. That's very nice of you to say that. And she started asking about, when was my birthday, and that somehow segued into my talking about my mother's birthday coming up in just a month or so. And she said, oh, tell me about your mother. And so I started to tell her, and I could see over her shoulder that the two camera guys were ready to have the camera start rolling. And they were showing a bit of agitation, and they said, all right, speed, we've got to get the camera rolling. And Meryl Streep holds up her hands, and she says, no, wait a minute. I'm not finished talking with Tim about his mother. And I was just dumbstruck that Meryl Streep was telling the camera guys that she wanted to continue hearing about my mother. So while I'm watching the camera guy over her shoulder kind of grit his teeth at being chastised ever so eloquently and delightfully by Meryl Streep, I continued to tell about my mom's birthday, and she said, well, wish her a very happy birthday and send her my best regards. And then she took a beat and she said, okay, I think we're ready to start the interview now. Well, when you're Meryl Streep, you can decide when the interview is going to start, I guess, right? But how cool is that to have Meryl Streep talk about your mother and just be so very, very sweet? She's one of the most down-to-earth people I've run into. Stand by.